Hi everybody, you're live. Whoop, whoop. Hope everybody's doing well today on this Saturday. I'm gonna give just a few minutes. Let's see. Doo-doo. Sometimes it tells me, sometimes it doesn't. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so I do see there are 3 people on here, so I'm going to get started without too much delay. I wanted to share with you, and I tried to print something, but it didn't work. Pardon my roots, they're getting a little longer now, but that's okay. We're still working with it. Happy to be alive and here making cards with you guys today. So I wanted to print this thing, which is what took me longer to get on today than usual, but my printer didn't want to print it. So anyway, I want to share this with you. I have my DSP and my ribbon share information, and it's up on my blog. Still got to get it working just a little bit because there's one thing that looks like it loaded, but it didn't. So it might not 100% be there. But I have something I definitely posted on my Facebook page with a link if you would be interested in doing the 2020 DSP share from the catalog. Now, the price is listed on there. It might seem a little expensive, but you are getting every single paper. So it's not just the designer series paper that are like the pretty print, like In Good Taste, which I'm still waiting for my pre-order. It is also the 2020, 2022, and the 2019, 2021 in colors, those DSPs as well. So it's a lot of paper. I believe it's 16 different papers. So when you break it down, it's just the cost. It also includes me shipping and then shipping to you priority. 5 days, and yours is still picking. Mine just shipped a week later. So note to self, when June 3rd runs around, I'm going to be paying for faster shipping, but I'm just being selfish. But anyway, I did finally get my catalog, which was super exciting. So I'm not sure if you got yours or not, Diana, but it was really, it's so awesome, isn't it? So what I was going to show you guys today, and I also have a ribbon to share. So I'm only doing the new ribbon. So that one's a little bit cheaper. And then there's also a combo where you can do the DSP and the ribbon. So even if you are a demonstrator and you want to order this because maybe you don't want to order all the papers, it's a nice way to be able to see the papers, but not have to buy all the papers, and that way you can see whether or not you like what you picked. But what we're going to make today is this adorable card. Hopefully you can see that. I was just playing around with, ironically, wait till you see the stamp set that I used for this one, Snowfront. So I was playing around with this, and I was looking at the images, and a lot of times when I get a new catalog, what I'll do is I'll kind of look at the images and see what I see that it's maybe not meant to be necessarily. So what I do is I actually look at them upside down. So to me, this kind of looked like if a wave were to rush up and then come dripping back down on the beach. So that's what I did for this part right here. So I actually stamped it upside down, and then I went in after the fact and I added a little bit of white, but it wasn't quite enough. I didn't really like the way it was, so I actually added some white heat embossing to that. So this is a pretty simple card for me because it is only one layer. I did layer it onto a piece of basic black, and you can see it's only 1/8 of an inch difference, so I might do it a little bit different this time. And then the other thing I did was on the very bottom here, you can see there's a white line on the bottom and a white line on the top. So I was trying to make it look kind of like a postcardy image. I didn't frame out the sides, which you could do, but I was just being lazy with my tape. And this was actually the very first version of this I made. So we're going to make one together. So it'll be the second version. So we can either change it so we have the border all the way around. I'm actually going to trim it down a little bit smaller because one other time when I made a card like this, what I did was I had the front and I had it askew and it really looked like a postcard. It was really fun. So yes, that is what I do a lot of times. It might sound a little crazy, but I actually look at things upside down to see if there's other things that maybe you can see that you wouldn't have seen before. Like for example, when you look at this stamp set, you know, this could be like a lake, could also kind of be a volcano. Rainbow Stamper came up with that one. And then depending on which way you want the water, it could be like the echo or not the echo, like the mirror of the sun on the water. So I look at things differently, I think, than most people do anyway, because a lot of times I feel like I can see things in a second version of something. So what I'll do is I'll just take the stamp set and I'll either turn it maybe on its side or I turn it upside down. Not that you want a tornado card, because that's probably not, but maybe if you had like a child that was like a tornado in your house, this could be like a tornado, and you could say like, oh, like he's a whirlwind today. I don't know. But those are the things I think of. So one other point that I want to make is I'm also going to do a different card on Wednesday. However, I think my pre-order comes on Tuesday. So I'm probably going to do an unboxing Tuesday, but it'll be late. And then we'll do our regular Wednesday card. And then I'm going to try to get on again one day next week to do something new with one of the new things we have. So without further delay, I'm going to flip you down. I'm going to tell you two things. One thing I used were these little brushes, which I did end up getting these on Amazon. They weren't really very expensive, and they all are kind of color coded, so gold. So I use this for the sand. The sand that I did, ironically, I started out with Pineapple Punch, which is retiring, if you remember. And I thought the trees really, really look really realistic, and I did those in Call Me Clover. So just remember, if you aren't paying attention necessarily, some of the ink colors will be retiring very soon. So I'll go over those when we flip the camera down. So I haven't even had that much coffee today. I don't know why I'm speaking so crazily, but anyway, I have the whole house to myself and I'm crafting. So maybe that's why. All right, guys, hang tight. Oh, okay, Stacy, thanks for joining in. I'm gonna flip you down. In case you get sick, just turn away. All right. Hey, Fran, how you doing? Thanks for joining. All right, so we're all settled flat. So that's the one good thing. I should not have any issues with the Wi-Fi because I am the one and only person that's home, and the only thing I'm on is my phone, so hopefully we'll be okay. So this card today, you can see it's a bit of a mess here because I literally just finished it, and I was trying to print out the PDF paper for you, and that didn't work. So what I did was I cut this, and I actually did this on shimmery white paper. So the cousins are now. Thank you. Thanks for doing that, Fran. You're a great sharer. I did this on shimmery white paper. I was considering doing it on thick whisper white, but I went with shimmer. So it is going to end up with a little bit of a sparkle when you look at the paper on the side. So it's very pretty. So I'm actually going to get a few of these things out of the way. I'm going to stick with the same base for this though. So I do already have a base of Pacific Point, and this is just a regular standard card base, so 8.5 by 5.5, score it 4 1/4. And then I have a piece of shimmery white, which I'm actually going to trim down a little bit, and I'm going to do this one instead of how I did it the first time. This one is 4 by 5 1/4, and then the black piece is 4 1/8, and they'll be by 5 3/8, and then I'm on a regular base. So we're gonna make our white portion just a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna go with 3 3/4 by 5. Is that right? Yeah, because this one I didn't trim. That's why it looks crazy. I was thinking, why is this so long? So 3 3/4 by 5. That way, if we want to, we can, and what I was trying to explain earlier is we could kind of put this like a little askew, so it almost looks like a postcard will be on there. So that's what I'm going for. So I'm going to do the same with my black panel. Let me go ahead and trim this one. I'm going to still do the same thing though. I'm going to have a very thin border because I want it to be able to fit on there. So this one is going to measure 5 1/8 by 3 7/8, which is just 2 hash marks before the 4. Let me make sure this layers correctly. I didn't goof it up. There we go. So then when we put this panel down, we can kind of put it like a little bit askew, so it kind of looks like a postcard, if you get what I'm going at. You also could, if you wanted to, pop this layer up on dimensional so it has a little bit more depth to it. And one other tip that I have, when you put these pieces together, because they have such a thin border, it's really important if you use the liquid glue because it gives you a lot of wiggle room to be able to move around. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, thanks for joining us, Jill. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start kind of the way I did it. So I ended up with 2 long pieces of purple tape, to kind of give myself a border, and I just eyeballed it. I didn't measure anything. And this also kind of helped me with taping it down so I could work with what I wanted to. Now, if you are the kind of person that when you tape it down, you like to rotate it, you could also tape it to a board so you could turn it as you use it. So that's another choice. So I'm going to take the other half. I just ripped this in half and put the other half at the bottom. All right, and then I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to just take a piece, and basically what I do is I just kind of tear it in half as equally as possible. I'm sure you could get out the scissors and be very precise, but that's not really... I'm just glad these two pieces here overlap. That's not necessarily my style. I'm definitely not a specific measurer. Yep, this one's just a teeny bit off. Let's see if I can move this up a little bit. Bring this up just a tad. All right, so that's good enough. So with the shimmery white paper, it is more similar to a watercolor style paper because it is able to hold a little bit more water, which is kind of why we were able to work a little bit more into this card. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to do it exactly the way I did it for the last one. So I started with Seaside Spray, and I'm going to show you the pieces I have. So I did also use Waterfront because I used the little house and the palm trees. So this kind of uses two cards or two stamp sets. And then I used the Snowfront. I used this piece here. So this is typically would be like trees, maybe on a slope or something like that. But again, just kind of maybe see things in a different way. Helps to open up the possibilities of what you have. So I'm just going to put this here, and then again I have my Seaside Spray, and I'm going to ink this up. Seaside Spray is a pretty soft color. If I was using Balmy Blue, so if you wanted it a little bit darker, I would definitely stamp off first. But so I'm going to just kind of pick a spot where I think the wave is kind of coming up. So there's one. Make sure you guys are still in the frame because I know I'm a little bit off-centered on the bottom there. And we'll just actually this one, since it's a little bit smaller, meets a lot better. I probably could have gone up a little bit higher, but that's okay. We're going to leave it like that for now. So that was the first one. Then I'm going to grab this little piece here. So this little mound. And what I did was I kind of put this in as like a wave coming up. So again, you can see where I centered this, it is a little bit lower, so we're not going to be able to get as much in, but every single card's different, so nothing wrong with that. We'll just kind of put a little bit, stamp this one off, so it's down there just a little bit lower, okay? And I kind of kept these handy because I also use this for the kind of beach portions up here. And I think for the next one, I'm going to change the house up to a really bright color. I think I might make it lovely lipstick instead. So generally to start, here's what I did. I'm going to once again open up my Seaside Spray, and you can see I have my brayers. I tried to keep everything out because sometimes what I do is I put things away as I'm crafting, which sounds very unusual for me, and then I can't remember what I did. So I have my Seaside Spray, which I did also already use this on my Balmy Blue. So don't be like me. Make sure you use a different one for different colors so you don't contaminate it. I'm back. Oh, that's not good. What happened? Uh-oh. Oh, no. Let me pop one here real quick. Let me see. It says it's still counting, and it looks like I'm still live. Now I'm a little bit nervous. I'm going to check something. The screen might go black just for a sec there, Fran. Went black, but good. Okay, so you guys can see me now? That's so weird because you're right. I can't see myself on here, which I try to monitor the comments. Hold on before I go any farther. It had an error message. Oh, thanks, Pat. We see you. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Sometimes when your brother comes in and is backup tech support and he doesn't realize it. Okay, so back to what I was doing. Sorry that blanked out. That's totally strange. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the sponge brayer, which unfortunately is the only one we have now. And I'm using the Seaside spray. So what I was saying probably before I blacked out was when you use these, you want to switch every time because you don't want to put a darker color into a lighter color. So I did this earlier, starting with Seaside spray, and then I moved to Balmy Blue. But if I were you, I would try to pick a new one because these do come with 2 wands and then you get 4 sponges, so you can very easily change them out. So I'm going to start very lightly with Balmy Blue, just rolling back and forth. And you want to roll the whole thing because if you just go like this, you'll just get color on one side. Other thing to be very careful about is if you have a foam pad like this one, this little piece can be a little bit rough on it. So try not to push down too hard. Keep your pinkies up, that way you're not pressing too hard. So then I'm just going to roll over the oceany part. And anybody that was late joining us, thank you so much for joining. This will fully load on the replay, so you won't miss anything. But we are making this really cool beachy card here at the top. So I'm kind of just adding in the blue until I get a nice coating on the bottom, okay? There is a little bit of overlap here, but we're going to cover that up, so you don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to close the Seaside spray, and now we're going to go to Balmy Blue. And I'm going to do the same thing, so don't be like me, get a different one. And I'm going to put just a little bit of Balmy Blue to give a little darker color. Okay, so that's pretty good. And I will tell you one thing. Almost every single time you do this, it's going to look a little bit different. So one other thing I did was I took this blender brush, which I did get these on Amazon. They're makeup brushes, but they're really, really good for blending ink. And then I took a little bit of Pool Party. Move this over. And I picked it up with the brush, and then you kind of just blend very lightly. I like to go circular because I feel like it blends a little bit better, but I don't really know that it necessarily makes much of a difference. So this is going to kind of give it more of that little bit of a Caribbean blue versus a blue. Okay. So pretty good for that. I'm not going to overdo it because you can always add more, but you can't take it away. So I have, those are the water blues. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the beach part. So I'm going to start with my lightest color, which is Pineapple Punch. And this one is one that's retiring. So if you don't have it, you might want to get it sooner than later. So I have a different sponge. Oh, you're watching me on the big screen? That's okay. Thank you for watching, Kathy. I appreciate it. Nice to see you. Hope you guys are having some nice weather in Ohio. So Pineapple Punch is a fairly light color, so you might think, wow, that's going to be really yellow, but it takes a lot for this to show up. So I'm just going to go across, kind of trying to create the sand for the Pineapple Punch. And we'll kind of go a little bit down here. Now you will notice when you get these two colors together, because it's a green and a yellow, if the ink is a little bit still light, it might kind of merge, but it also gives you a nice look of that water meeting the sand. And I'm going to show you one other thing I did that I might not repeat on this one when we get up there. So I'll show you, and then you can decide if you want to do it. I'm going to do this one without, and then I'll show you the difference. So now I'm going to move on to Crushed Curry. I was thinking of doing mango, but I thought it might be a little bit dark. So Crushed Curry is definitely a darker color. So you want to go light and only add this as you need. But it kind of gives you that speckly look for the sand. And then I'm going to go right down here and just follow the curve a little bit. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. So put those on the side. Now, in order to get this sandy kind of mounds where the things collect, you know, everything collects in the beach when you're sitting there, I kind of went with crumb cake. And I also, if you notice, there's a little bit here. I was trying to get that wet sand look, but to me it got a little muddy. So I'm actually going to skip that for this one, but I am going to still do it where whatever it is we're going to put up there would be. So I have my crumb cake, and I have that same piece that we used down at the bottom here. And I'm going to put that in for the mound. So we'll kind of just change this around, but you really want to make sure you have something to stamp off with, because this is really dark. So if we were to stamp this direct, it's really, really dark. Even the second time is pretty dark. So I kind of went with the third. So it's just something light. We can always add more. Give you kind of an idea of where you want to put your items that you're putting in. So I'm going to put my beach house a little bit lower because our paper is a little bit smaller. And we'll do the same over here for our other set of palm trees. So kind of just giving us an idea of where we want to put things. I'm going to close the crumb cake for now. And now we're going to do the palm trees. So strangely enough, I did the palm trees in Mossy Meadow, which I know seems like a crazy color, but I'm going to show you what I did. So I have Mossy Meadow ink, and then I have my soft suede marker. So I'm going to ink this in the Mossy Meadow, and then I'm going to take the brush tip of my soft suede, and I'm kind of just drawing some lines across, kind of like you would have on a palm tree a little bit, and just kind of decide where I want this. Looks pretty good. And then same thing again, I'm going to clean this off first since I added the other ink to it. And same thing again, so I'm just kind of adding some marks with the brush tip of my marker. I'll put this one over here. Okay, so it doesn't give a lot, but you can see there's a little bit of variation in the color. And if you're ever worried about whether or not you got a little green on your soft suede, you could just kind of brush the tip off. Usually it doesn't have a problem. Now, if you were to use this on a light colored marker, you would want to use the light before the dark. So just keep that in mind. So there are our palms. And then Call Me Clover, which is another color that's retiring. This is what I did the top of the trees in. So the palm leaves, which are really, really cute. And the nice part about these type of stamps, the photopolymer, is you can see through them, so you can line them up just where you want them. Ooh, got a little crazy there. Hold on. Okay, so I'm going to just line these up right here. One. And you could even do, oh, what did I do there? I must have had a splotch. Oh my goodness gracious. Come on, Rach. There we go. I'm going to try, since I made that little whoopsie there, I'm actually going to ink just one of these to cover it up. We're going to have a very small palm tree. So if you ever do something goofy like that, which happens to me all the time, if you guys have crafted with me before, you know I'm constantly goofing something up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little piece of a Post-it note. As I've said before, I make mistakes, so you don't have to. So I'm going to cover up the bigger palm tree, okay, with a Post-it note. Then I'm going to ink the smaller one. And then I'm going to take this off and throw it in the trash so I don't step on it on my carpet. And I'm going to just put this right, hopefully, let me just make sure there's nothing goofy there. Perfect. Wow, that worked out well. Sometimes it doesn't. But then you can always cover it up with something else. So we have our little palm trees. All right, so let me move a couple of these things out of the way. And I do want to grab the lovely lipstick. We're going to have a really fun colored house there. Instead of the Call Me Clover, I did that one as well. We're going to do one in lovely lipstick. So I'm going to just ink up the little house. And I have my sand mound here. Remember, it's still kind of light, but I can see where I'm going, which is kind of the important part for me. Okay, looks good. I think I missed a little bit of the tip there, but that's okay. That's what happens when you're making your own cards, right? They're all going to be unique. So now I'm going to go back in with my crumb cake, and I'm going to stamp these just a little bit darker. So I'm going to ink up, and I'm only going to stamp off once, and I'm going to kind of try to follow the same pattern so it's a little bit darker. There you go. That looks cute. So for the most part, it looks very similar. I didn't add, again, the crumb cake down here. When I actually did add that, as a matter of fact, I did it with part of a sponge, and I did it with a different piece of the side. So if you got maybe the lined part of your sponge to do it. You might be able to get a nicer edge to it, but I kind of just wanted to leave it how it was. So we're going to do this one just a little bit differently. So now what we're going to do, let me put a few of these things away so I don't make a humongous mess in the end of our card here. So I do have my white craft ink. So this is the only craft ink that Stampin' Up! Currently carries. And as you can see, I bought mine when I started stamping about 17 years ago. It's still held up really, really well. I actually just re-inked it though. So now these actually come uninked. So you actually would add the ink to them once they ship them. So we're going to have this, and then I have a blender pen that is dedicated just to the white ink because it will not come out. So I have that ready as well. And let me move a few of these things over. There's a couple little things we're still going to need. I am going to get out my Bermuda Bay marker. One other thing I want to tell you, just while I'm thinking of it, is you want to be careful with, right now, the purple tape, the ink will not dry on it. So I have this one little spot over here that has ink, and I'm actually going to wipe it off just so I don't end up putting my hand in it and smearing it onto my card, because I guarantee you that will absolutely happen. Just like that. So just be careful because ink doesn't dry on the tape necessarily. So in order to get this white, what I did originally was I did the white craft ink and I put it there. And it looks nice until it dries. It kind of gets a little bit softer. So I thought what I would do instead is I'm going to turn this on in the background to heat it up. I have my heat tool. I'm going to get it nice and hot. So I'll turn this on over here so you don't have to listen to it. I won't say that you necessarily have to do this fast, but you kind of want to let it go a little bit quicker than you normally would. This is a step you can totally omit, but I think it's really worth it. So I'm going to open up my white Stampin' Emboss powder. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to pull this off now. I'm going to just put these pieces of tape on the side, because you know they're going to show up somewhere again. I'll use these over. Okay, so the reason I untaped it, so it definitely has more of a postcardy look since it has the line. The reason I untaped it is because I wanted to be able to pick it up and move it. So one other important thing, I know this is sold out on the Stampin' Up! Site, but I'm sure all of you at this point have an embossing buddy of some sort. So some sort of a dry emboss powder. You want to make sure that you put this over top because you don't want anything to stick, any of the white craft powder to stick where we don't want it, or the white embossing powder. Now, I don't want to put it up here because these are still a little bit wet, so I'm going to try my best to kind of keep it down below. You could also wait for this to totally dry before you do this step. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open my pad, and I'm going to open my blender pen, and I'm going to dip directly into this. So I just re-inked it, so it's pretty juicy. And I'm just going to do a little piece at a time. So I find that if you're just putting little kind of brush strokes of white, and since this was supposed to be foam, remember I was saying rushing up, I kind of was doing part of this as well. And I'm going to sprinkle. Okay, continue the same thing. I'm just going to add, and it doesn't have to be the whole part, but I kind of liked it a little bit more when it was hitting the shore, because if you've been to the beach, you know that it tends to foam up there. So same thing again, I'm just going to take this, sprinkle. Whoop, there went my cap. This is like one of those back waves that always catches you when you're boogie boarding and you think you're safe, and then it whacks you in the head. So we got to do this one back here too. Bring it a little bit up here. Okay, same thing again, just sprinkling. Now the nice part about the pigment ink is this white ink specifically is a pigment ink. It does stay wet a little bit longer than traditional dye ink that Stampin' Up! Makes. So you do have a little bit more wiggle time. So same thing. Figured since I haven't gone to the beach yet, I'll make my own surf card. I thought that was pretty fun. I really do miss the beach. I'm so ready to go to the beach, especially with all this corona. This isn't the corona-cation I envisioned. Alright, so we'll sprinkle. Okay, so I'm just going to take a look, and I think that looks pretty good. We could add more in if we wanted to, but we can always add it after the fact. Now, the other thing you can do too, especially because this has such a nice pointy tip, is you can take your blender pen again, ink it, and you can even draw like a little white line. If you just want like a little soft line, like as if the wave was kind of starting to come in. And then you can just sprinkle, same thing again, over those. Oops. Forgot I have my ceiling fan on. It's a little warm today. Okay, so that's going to be good enough. I'll grab my cap before I forget it. Close this up. I'm going to pour this powder back in, and then we will heat emboss this to set it. Now, one other thing you could do if you wanted really, really puffy waves is that we have, and I know we had this at the Christmas winter catalog, which it will be coming back again, but we could even put the puff paint there and heat it, because then it would look like really big foam. All right, so I'm going to crank on my heat machine, so this is going to heat it, so bear with me. And when you're embossing with white, you always want to make sure you keep it moving so it doesn't burn the powder, because then you'll get yellow surf, and nobody's going to want to surf in yellow surf. It's kind of like yellow snow. You're just going to keep moving it around, and when it is set, it will be shiny. So it's almost done. I think we got it all. It looks good. Okay, so the last thing I did, I'm going to give this just a second to dry. And then with my Bermuda Bay marker, what I did, and this I was really, really kind of delicate when I did it, but you could kind of do what you want. I just traced underneath of the wave to give a little bit more of a perspective of depth to the actual wave. So all I did was I took the very, very tip of my marker, and I kind of just went right, just really, really gently. I mean, let me show you the difference between the two. There's none there and just a teeny bit there. So it's really not a lot at all. So kind of went underneath. You can do on however much or little that you want. Sounds like we're in the tropics here, right? I have a neighbor that has a tropical bird of some sort. I don't know what it is, but it loves the hot weather, I can tell you that. I think it's a condor. Okay, almost done. Just a little bit here. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. So these are pretty, let's say identical, but they're very similar. So the last thing I'm going to do is I stamped the greeting. For this one, I stamped it on the bottom and I used the Stamparatus. But this one, kind of the way it is, I almost wonder. Sometimes I feel like I don't want to I don't want to say ruin it, but mess it up with the greeting. So what do you guys think? Because personally, I think this looks like a postcard. And you could kind of just put it a little bit askew here and it'll look nice without a sentiment. So I'm going to go ahead and mount this to the black. And then I'm going to put dimensionals on the back to put it onto here. And in the meantime, let me know what you think. And I'm going to pay attention for the comments for a change because sometimes I do forget to do that. No greeting is needed. Perfect, Diana. I always like some of these cards kind of just leaving it as is. And that way it almost lets the person take themselves where they want to be, especially if they're getting a really nice card in the mail and they can go on a vacation for a minute without any thought. So I'm going to put this here. And again, because it's such a tight fit, the liquid glue really, really helps. And granted, one other thing to keep in mind, the heating does kind of warp the paper just a little bit, but if you just press on it for a second when you're mounting it, it really gets flat. If it really bothers you, the other thing you could do is you could run this through your die cutting machine just with a piece of printer paper on the top and bottom, and it'll flatten it out really, really nicely. But I think it's a really, really flattens up, like I said, once you attach it, but a really pretty card just like that. So I'm going to put this on with black dimensionals, which are just going to be nice because you really won't see them underneath of the card. So that's probably about good. And I still mysteriously cannot find my paper piercing tool. Helps get these off a little less painfully. Sometimes they take a while. It's got to be around here somewhere. I haven't cleaned off my craft table, which I'm sure sounds like a total shock to some of y'all. You know, I'm not the best craft cleaner-upper, but I have been trying to do a little bit better of a job. Now, one other thing. Sometimes I'll put these on like this, but sometimes I find that I still put it crooked. So I've been really trying to make sure that I fold these before I put especially when you want something to be straight, before I put it on. Now this one's going to be a little bit askew, so it kind of looks like a little photograph. So we don't want to go too much because we don't want to kind of impede our envelope fitting. So it's just a little bit off. So I think it looks really like a portrait that somebody sent you. So I'm just going to, now that I have it there, smooth. One other thing you can do if you're ever worried about putting something on with dimensionals is when you put your dimensionals on the back, put a little bit of liquid glue on top of them, and it'll still give you that wiggle room like the liquid glue does. So I think it'll be really cool. But both of these are really fun. Again, let me move all this stuff out of the way so you can see. So two kind of different versions of kind of the same card. We did change the house up a little bit, which I think is really, really fun. Now, one thing about these stamp sets specifically, so Snowfront is what we use for this. We also used a little bit of Waterfront. Waterfront is the only one that actually has any sentiments in it. So if you get these, sometimes you kind of be like, but you can use all your other stamp sets. Same thing with My Meadow. That's another really great one. That's a building stamp set. Even same with Mountain Air. So you can always bring in your greeting sets, but Waterfront does have some really nice ones as well that you can add in. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope wherever you are, you're having some beautiful weather and enjoying some sunshine. I'm going to finish getting my May tutorials together for my kit to go. If you're interested in subscribing for that, I do still have the PDF available for purchase. And then I will be creating a new card for the June card kit to go, monthly club to go. I don't know. I keep calling it so many different things. But I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope you get some sunshine and have a good time and enjoy yourself. And I will see you guys, if not before, I will see you Wednesday on Facebook at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thanks again for hanging in with me with the whole glitchy thing in the middle. I truly appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching, sharing, commenting. And if you missed the beginning of this video, it will reload onto YouTube, hopefully in its entirety form, and you'll be able to watch it again. So thank you guys. Take care and have a great weekend.